I would like everyone to close their eyes and think of the neighborhood they grew up in, where you went to school, the types of people that surrounded you, interactions you had. Let me illustrate what came to my mind. 6 classmates came to mind for me. 3 are at a four-year university, 2 were victims of gang violence, and 1 is a U.S. Marine. I grew up in the Garnet neighborhood of Fullerton, located just across the freeway from Cal State Fullerton, a place I never stepped foot on until my former JOYA mentor, Sandra Franco, took me to a dance show put on by their dance department. This is the case of many in the community. Most miss that last connecting piece to push them towards higher education. My neighborhood is primarily composed of immigrants, or monarch butterflies as I like to refer to them, as they never fail to demonstrate resilience and strength despite their difficult journeys. Allow me to tell you about my family. From a young age, my mother worked long hours at a local farm picking vegetables. Herself and her grandmother barely made enough money to eat small meals like beans, tortillas, and sopa de fideos. Her whole childhood consisted of working and going to Catholic Mass on Sundays. Nothing more, nothing less. My mother had to walk by herself for miles each day to attend school as they lived in a secluded part of town. Eventually, she was forced to leave school once she finished elementary, as her grandmother wasn't able to work due to old age and illness. She worked as a seamstress at a factory until she immigrated to the United States. Yet even life here hasn't been so glamorous. My mother and stepfather both work for long hours at restaurants in order to keep us afloat. There are many misconceptions surrounding the socioeconomically disadvantaged community. We're labeled as lazy due to our economic status and uneducated due to our statistically lower performance in education in comparison to our white and Asian counterparts, when in reality, it's pre-existing systems that complicate the path to success. I vividly remember a time around President Obama's election when an educator went on a rant against immigrants. This obviously made many of us students uncomfortable as our parents were immigrants. But we remained silent and nodded our heads in agreement as we had been taught to do. That occurred 12 years ago. I was 7, yet I still recall that feeling in my stomach after those words left his lips. It's events as such that discourage and derail students, which is where the Chicanx educational pipeline comes in. The Chicanx educational pipeline is a shocking truth not too widely known about. Personally, I had no idea this existed prior to a few months ago, which makes me wonder, is every educator, school board member, and anybody involved in the education of Chicanx students aware of this? Out of 100 elementary school students, 46 graduate from high school, 26 enroll in college, 8 graduate with a bachelor's degree, 2 go to grad school, and 0.2 graduate with doctoral degrees. After extensive research and personal experiences, I truly believe that this is all due to a faulty foundation in their educational journeys. Although elementary school was filled with perfect scores, middle school was a rude awakening. About 3 classmates from elementary and I moved into a full schedule of honors classes. We were expected to be the smartest, as it had been for the past 7 years, but we soon realized that we were not adequately prepared to take on these courses. This meant that we would be forced to push past our own limits. Surrounded by individuals who looked nothing like I did, I felt out of place. I recall nights where I would pick up a dictionary and thesaurus in an effort to try to increase my vocabulary, as I wasn't using the big words that my classmates in honors English were using. Experiences like this really made me question whether I'd actually have a chance at succeeding in higher education. If you would have asked me my freshman year where I wanted to go to college, I would have said NYU, UCLA, or USC. But those simply became dreams for me as I grew older, convincing myself that I would never be good enough for those schools. Luckily, JOYA Scholars and other important figures in my life, such as my former high school counselor, Laura Campazano, enabled me to believe in myself and continue to reach higher. Without their encouragement, I would have never applied to UCLA. I've always been an ambitious individual, But I too struggled with imposter syndrome ever since I began middle school up until this past year in college. The summer before moving to Westwood, I cried on countless occasions out of fear that I wasn't good enough, that I'd never be able to compete with other Bruins. Now, after a year, I've come to realize that I do belong. I'm there for a reason, because I can handle it. Higher education offers people like me, the daughter of immigrants, a chance to succeed in this country. But this is not an easy journey due to systems put into place that aim to subjugate us. I want to dismantle those systems. I know it won't be easy, but it has to be done. My favorite quote from Dr. Seuss states, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not." This is something I live by, as I'm not one to sit back and watch injustice unfold in front of me. I want to ensure that equitable systems are created. I would like to thank JOYA Scholars for continuing to support me throughout my journey. I promise I won't let you down.